Hi and welcome to Carlos Cooks again. It's a very warm evening here in Gloucester in England tonight, but I'm still going to do some baking and we're going to make buttermilk scones. And the reason we're going to do that is because if you watched my video from yesterday where we made creamy butter just from cream, you'll know that left over was buttermilk. So we're not going to waste it, we're going to use it today to make these scones. And I'm even going to use the butter that we made yesterday in yesterday's video as well. So let's go through the rest of the ingredients. First, 500 grams of plain flour. And we're going to mix that with the butter, which is 120 grams, and we're going to flake that through with our fingers and make a sort of a crumb. And that's going to be our sort of dried ingredient base, if you like. To that, the buttermilk. We've got 240 mils of buttermilk in here that we made yesterday. And then all that's required after that is 2 tablespoons of baking powder, a jar of sugar, another 2 tablespoons of that, and a single teaspoon of salt. Okay, flour's gone into a large mixing bowl. Butter is still quite cool, which is fine. We don't want it necessarily at room temperature. It's going to be easier to crumb into the flour. So we're just going to add that straight in and then begin scrunching it up into the flour, and we want it to sort of break up evenly and go throughout the flour until you've got a sort of breadcrumb style mixture, so you've got a bit of the butter throughout the entire amount of flour, and this will take you a few minutes. Okay, let's put our dry ingredients in first. So baking powder, 2 tablespoons. This is the only thing that's going into these to help them rise. It's plain flour, so you need quite a hefty amount of baking powder. It's what gives them the kick that they need. And you usually find the baking powder starts working and they rise as the dough's sitting on the side. Next up, same amount of sugar. This is a very basic scone recipe. There are loads of different variants and lots of people have other things that they add to their scones or like to add to their scones. I've seen people put honey in them, golden syrup, all sorts of things. Right, there's our teaspoon of salt, and then the next thing is our buttermilk. So we really haven't wasted anything from the butter we made yesterday. I've still got a lot of it left. And we've used up the buttermilk, and we've even used some of the butter as well. So I'm just going to get a wooden spoon and we'll start mixing that. Okay, I've been bringing all that dough together with a wooden spoon, and it very quickly mixes up with the buttermilk. Make sure you give it a good stir, because you've obviously put salt and baking powder in there. We want to get that worked into the dough evenly. So now you can see we've got the beginnings of a dough. It's a workable dough there, and it's not overworked at all. So now it's time, if you want, to add some fruit. Now I like currants and sultanas in my scones, with jam and clotted cream of course, but I'm just going to sprinkle a few currants in there, and barely a handful of sultanas. You don't need much. Now it's time to get my hands in there and get that incorporated nicely, and then we'll get it out on the side here. So your bowl should be nice and clean at this point. The dough's all come out in one lump. So you can just give it a quick mix, rotating the bowl as you do so, and that'll just get those pieces of fruit evenly distributed throughout it. Great. So next step is to get it out and roll it out with a rolling pin. Okay, nicely floured surface. dough out on it, and we're not going to roll it too thin, just thin enough that when we fold it, it's going to be about the right height for a scone. So just, if we do it rectangular shaped, like that, turn it over and then you can really get it rolled out nice. Use your rolling pin to bring the size in, try and get it nice and even, that way you'll get your thin spots thicken back up and it'll look nice and even. So that's about right. Now we're just going to fold it once and then twice, and then we're going to leave it like that for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to roll it out just gently and cut it with a cutter. Okay, just after about 3 to 5 minutes, you'll notice it'll start to puff up. It'll get lighter and it'll start to puff up. So the next step now is just to roll that back out. What we're doing is we're putting layers in, so the scones have got layers when they're opened up. So we want this quite thick now. We don't want it too thin, because these need to get some height on them. So use your pin again to square it all up. You can see we've got about ½ inch thickness there. We're not going any less than that. So we're just going to try and cut 12 out of that. We might get 12, we might get a few more. Easily as you can. So that's about what you're looking for. Okay, if you've got a scone cutter, you can use that. I haven't, but I just use a glass with a little bit of flour around the rim, and it's just as good. And these come out the perfect size, as you can see. And when you've cut out all the scones you can, the remainder of the dough, just bring it together very gently, because we can get a few more scones out of that, but you don't want to sort of mix it. You just want to sort of try and get it together as best you can without remixing it, because we don't want to get rid of the what the raising agent has done. So we're just very gently bringing it together and just try and pinch out some of the seams if you can across the top of the dough. Turn it over and do the same on the other side. Just try and pinch it together to see if you can get a smooth sort of look to it. And then we'll just leave that to one side. Same amount of time. It's going to need another couple of minutes just to come back to where it was, and we'll get another 2 scones out of that, which is going to give us 10. Okay, you want some non-stick baking paper on your tray. I've run out, so I've done the next best thing. I've just taken 2 non-stick cake papers, the large sort of tin ones, and I've just put 2 of those on. They won't stick to those. They're just as good. It'll keep my tray clean. Next thing to do is a milk wash. Just before they go in the oven, give them a good coating with that. Good brushing all over the sides and the top. This just stops them from burning, and you get a nice sheen to the top of your scone. Lovely. It's all ready to go in the oven. 170 degrees centigrade. It's going to take about 12 to 15 minutes depending on how much colour you want on them. Right, all going well, after around 15 minutes at 170, or a little bit longer depending on how much colour you want on them, the finished product should look like this. And as you can see, they've risen up beautifully, colour underneath, colour on top, and they're going to be delicious with, I would put everything on them. Butter, cream and jam, I think. Clotted cream, of course. So, buttermilk scones, made with butter and buttermilk that we made yesterday on a butter video. So have a look at that video, because if you make that, you'll have most of the ingredients you need for this. So have a go at making those. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when I make new content, and give it a thumbs up if you like the video, because it encourages me to keep continuing. Alright, I'll see you next time.